What is going on, growers? Today I am showing you how to prune stone fruit, specifically nectarines. I got these from a box store. These are from Home Depot. Usually I don't go with that route, but I saw a couple of nice ones, so I just decided to pick them up. The first thing you want to look for when you select a tree at any store or nursery is the way it grows. Stone fruit need at least 3 really healthy scaffold branches that go out at around 45 degrees or lower, not too low, not horizontal, not too high. So the reason why you want to do that is because those 3 main scaffold branches are what you're going to be leaving. Everything else is going to go, even the central leader. The central leader is the main trunk that goes all the way up. We're going to be pruning to an open center. An open center is basically making the tree look like a goblet, or kind of like a cup opening up. And it's not ideal, doesn't look like the prettiest tree initially. Basically you're trimming it back and it almost looks like a twig with like 3 or 4 branches. But the reason why you're doing that is because you want these branches to grow outward so that you have optimal sun, optimal wind. You have plenty of photosynthesis going on, and you have a lot of airflow going through, so it reduces any kind of disease. You're also chopping out any kind of branches that cross over. Crossovers, basically, they start wiggling and rubbing on main scaffold branches like this branch right here. Eventually this could lead to an open canker or an open area of the bark, and what that can do is just lead to mold growth, disease, other insects coming in to suck the sap out, things like that. You'll wind up with a dead branch. So essentially it does kind of make you sad to see all these other branches go, but it's very necessary, especially in the beginning. And what that's also going to do is going to produce or promote a lot of root growth, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We just planted this in yesterday. We're going to trim it up today, and hopefully we're going to see a lot of great growth and focus on just 3 or 4 main scaffold branches. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 3 or 4 main scaffold branches, and then from there I'm just going to try to remember my best. Or you can do this, you can mark them off so that you don't accidentally chop those off as well. So first thing I'm going to do is look at these and say, hey, how do I want this thing to look in 5-10 years from now? So I'm going to look for a really strong main scaffold branch. This is a main good one. This is not exactly 45 degrees, but this is going to do pretty well. You don't want them too far apart either. So you don't want to choose one here and then choose one up here. You want to choose them relatively close together because you want a nice even looking goblet from the same area from the base. So I like this branch. I like this one as well, and also this one back here. One thing you want to keep in mind is distance away from other objects and trees. I'm a good 15 feet away from that other nectarine and about 10 feet away from that elderberry. To my right over here, I'm about a good 7 feet from that fence. Luckily my neighbor's totally cool with nectarines falling in his yard and sharing, so that's good. So these branches, I don't see them really going off in any of the directions that's going to impede any of the growth. So I like this one, and this one. I may even leave this as well, but we'll see. Everything else is going to go. So I'm going to start off by taking off the main leader and then taking off all of these other branches. When you're pruning, you want to make sure that you're pretty close to the main leader or wherever you're pruning, but you also want to prune at a 45-degree angle. Why do you do that? Basically, you just want to make sure that all the rainwater runs off. If you were to cut something like, say, this branch horizontally right here, potentially a little bit of rain could just settle there. It could promote a little bit of mold growth. Likelihood is kind of low, but still, you don't want to take any chances. So first of all, I'm going to take off all these other branches that we selected that are going to be going. And another thing you want to remember too, get some good shears. Get some ones that are actually really sharp. Sometimes you actually want to sterilize them before you go off to the next pruning. That's just because you want to make absolutely sure there's no potential for any kind of disease. Every time that you cut something or dig something into the ground, all your tools are basically laden with bacteria and different viruses. They may be good, they may be bad. You don't want to take any chances though. So I went ahead and took off the central leader. I left 5 branches here. The reason I'm doing that is just so that I have one last chance to make absolutely sure I really like what I choose here. Okay, so before I do that, I know I'm gonna keep this really healthy, strong leader, strong scaffold branch, and it's pointed off into the middle of the yard. And this is the yard, by the way, and I didn't show this before, but I did create a food forest over here, and in another video I will definitely share that. Essentially the entire backyard is going to become a food forest and edible landscaping. So back to this. So right here, what you want to look for is that main scaffold branch and its main other branches coming off. I'm not going to leave all of them here. What you want to do is you want to select the one that goes in the right direction. In mine, in this case, you always want it to be outward facing, and you want to trim it to an outward bud. So this top one is great and everything, but as you can see, it has a pretty high angle. I want something closer to a 45-degree angle. That means this one's got to go, this one's got to go, this one's staying. So I'm going to go ahead and take these other ones off. And leave that outward facing branch. What that's going to do is going to continue growing in that same path that I want it to. I don't want it to be too high. What happens is if it grows too high at a higher angle, it produces so much fruit that it could potentially just snap over. And what happens then, not only do you lose fruit and lose all that energy that the plant put into creating it, but as it snaps, you could have it peel all of this bark all the way down. I've seen it before. So you want to look for that. Go ahead and leave that branch right there. And after this, I'm going to go ahead and select which one of these 5 or 4 others I'm going to keep. So here's a topographic view of what I'm looking at. This is the main scaffold branch that I kept and I just trimmed, and these other 4 I'm selecting. So what you want to do is look for the ones that grow away from each other the most and aren't crossing over. Luckily we have nothing crossing over, and a crossover basically is exactly what it sounds like. If this branch was coming over here, then that'd be an obvious chop that out, because it's just going to grow in that direction, rub on this tree, and cause disease or anything else. So I want at least 3 main scaffolds, and don't worry, they are tiny and thin right now. This is like a 2 or 3 year old tree, but that's fine. They're going to grow out to be pretty good, pretty strong branches. So we already looked at the angles. Right now I'm going to look for what doesn't grow close, what doesn't cross over, and what has a lot of room away from the other branches. This branch and this branch, they look to be of good distance from each other. So I'm going to take out this one right here, and that leaves us with 3 others. In this case, I'm just going to leave all 4 and just see how it goes. This is my first year planting this one, so we'll see. Some other things to consider is, yes, ideally 3 main scaffold branches is the best to go with, or I'd say what people usually go with. I'm sticking with 4. Down here in Tennessee, I'm in Middle Tennessee, we have some pretty crazy southern winds, so I want to keep 1 just in case one of the branches gets snapped. I understand that this tree is going to put a lot of energy into growing that 4th branch, but that's okay. This thing had plenty of other branches. It would have done fine with all of those. It just wouldn't have been ideal for fruit production and how everything could possibly snap off with over fruit production. So 4 branches is okay for now. Later on I may just take those out. So one last thing I got to do is, like that main strong scaffold branch like this one that I did, I'm going to look at this one. This has, it looks to be 2-year growth, and I want to look for an outward facing bud or an outward facing branch that it has. So it comes up here, this one's facing out, it's not facing inward or impeding anything. This one's a little too high of an angle, this one right here. So what I'm gonna do is come at this intersection right here, chop that off, and that looks pretty good. So as you can see, if I step back, and this is what you guys should do as well, just kind of step back and see what you got. It's not perfect. I mean, I have this branch right here that kind of twists this way. As things progress, you never know how the tree is going to grow. That's the excitement about growing. But for now, that's a pretty good open center, so I'm just going to leave it right there. So we're going to move on to the second nectarine. So I've gone and selected the scaffold branches. I've removed all the other branches that I don't need down on the ground, and I removed the tag, put it back on the tree. So you can kind of see how many little branches I had to take off. All right, here is the structure that I had kept on the tree. Doesn't look completely perfect, but oh, there's Django. She's just chilling there. Doesn't look perfect, but it's gonna grow at least parallel to the fence for the most part, and you have one coming back into the yard. So one other thing I want to mention is, ideally I would have done this like back in January. I'm in zone 7A in Middle Tennessee, and usually around this time, which is the beginning of March, you start to see things kind of bud out. But that's when I bought it, so it is what it is. At least they are semi-dormant. They're starting to come into a bloom, as you can see. I don't know if I can focus. Nope, I cannot. I personally kind of just left this little guy stay or stick around just in case, kind of like an insurance policy. I like doing that just because, like I said before, we can get kind of strong winds around here, and who knows, later in its growth, in a couple years, one of the branches could get knocked over while everything is, growing. You have a bunch of peaches, they're weighing the branches down, and all of a sudden we get one of these micro bursts or one of these strong southern storms and knocks one of the branches over. So it's kind of like an insurance policy. You get one just in case. If I don't need it, I could always lop it off. All right, that's it for today. Hope you guys got something out of it. Hope you learned something. Go ahead and hit that like button, comment below, subscribe, throw in some comments, let me know what else you'd like to hear. Other than that, hope you all have a great day. Get out there and start growing.